you need to be very committed in what you want. Then you need to have discipline. Then you need to work on a transparency and an ethical way to be able to succeed. So I feel these are the characteristics that have made me where I am today. My advice to the youth is, life is tough. To be successful, you can't get onto an elevator or an escalator. It's a step-by-step process. Africa has a huge potential. Tanzania has even bigger potential. I mean, if you look at the 6 out of the 10 fastest growing economies are in Africa, in the world. I mean, the world economists I read say that the world economy is growing at 1.7, 1.8%. The African continent is growing at 4.8%. So one of the advices that I was given that, as you get wealthier, do not increase your standard of living, rather increase your standard of giving.
Mohammed, affectionately known as Mo in his homeland in Tanzania and probably all over the world, is Africa's youngest billionaire and a rising soft commodities businessman from Tanzania who has threatened to take market share from global giants like P&G, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Today, we go through his top 10 rules for success and go through really behind and see what really drives this young businessman, what made him leave his $60,000 a year job on Wall Street in the United States to go and join his father to take up their business from a $30 million business empire. In 15 years, he has made that a $1.5 billion business empire. And we start with rule number 1, which says, be diligent, hardworking, and credible.
My advice to the youth is, life is tough. To be successful, you can't get onto an elevator or an escalator. It's a step-by-step process. You need to climb the stairs. So you need to be vigilant. You need to be very hardworking. It's very competitive out there. You need to be disciplined. You need to be ethical, and credibility is very, very important. So if you focus on these things, that success won't come very quickly, but it's a journey, then I'm telling you there's nothing that can stop you.
Now, the biggest thing we face in our economies is really that most people in African countries prefer to buy products that has been manufactured outside, whether this goes from very, very basic products like salt, sugar, and milk. Mo says there is a solution to this, one which you can tap into and actually make a lot of money as an entrepreneur. And for rule number 2, Mo says produce competitive products at a wonderful price and you'll be able to make so much money as an entrepreneur in Africa.
We are focusing our strategy on mass marketing to be able to produce quality goods that are affordable to the mass market. We don't want to deal with products that are high-end. We want to deal with products that people and Tanzanians can afford. Well, they are driven more on price. So if a Tanzanian product is priced better than a foreign product, then they will be inclined to buy a Tanzanian product. Of course, now we are creating a slogan to buy Tanzanian, because when you buy Tanzanian, that company manufactures in Tanzania and employs people and pays taxes in Tanzania. So it's always good to support, but I still feel in general that Tanzanians are driven by price. If you can give them a quality product with a good competitive price, then they will buy your product. And that's the motto of METL Group.
Rule number 3, with wealth comes responsibility.
Money is not everything. Money means nothing, because the moment you die, it's all over. So when you have or have accumulated that wealth, it is very important that how you be able to help people with that wealth. Because end of the day, I want to ask you a question. How much money does a person really need? As a person, not much. So when you accumulate wealth, you try to use that wealth. And now we have a foundation. I have Dewji Foundation. I have an NGO. So we try to help and support, communities in development, in education, and healthcare, and water, because I think for one reason or the other, God has chosen some people to be very wealthy. At the same time, with wealth comes responsibility. And that responsibility is to semi-distribute that wealth to people.
When people get wealthy, we start seeing them buying a lot of expensive cars, a lot of expensive trucks, and to the biggest extent, a lot of very, very expensive jets, though there are very few people who own a lot of expensive jets. It's usually just one jet. But what we see generally is that people increase their standard of living as they are getting rich. But for this rule, Moore says, as you get rich, increase your standard of giving and not your standard of living.
Some of the best advice you've been given and how that's propelled you.
So one of the advices that I was given that, as you get wealthier, do not increase your standard of living, rather increase your standard of giving. I believe life is very, very short, and when we die, we're all going to be accountable of what impact that we have made in this world. And so I've decided to do more philanthropy while I'm young. And many a times people ask me a question that why you just turned 40, you're 42, and you decided to give away half your wealth. It's because, and nobody knows how old you're going to live to be. I mean, there are people that are lucky to be 80, but anything can happen at any time.
Rule number 5, how do you become a billionaire? For most people, it's choosing what you want to do, investing 10,000 or how many hours you need to invest in it, get good at it, and then in the end, you get so much money while doing it obsessively and not slipping while you're actually doing what you do, whether it's writing software, whether it's selling products, whether it's advertising, marketing. But for this rule, Moore says, forget about the old rules that tell you to focus obsessively your mind on something while you're trashing your body, because your body is really what you need to drive you further. It's not really about getting money, but it's about staying healthy. And for this rule, Moore says, keep a healthy body and a healthy mind.
So by the way, I got kidnapped at the gym, It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and my dad was, when I was not there, this is the stories that my dad, and what does he do at the gym at 5 in the morning, right? It's crazy. So I think a healthy body is a healthy mind. I think it is very, very important. And you can go to the gym, you can run, but you need to exercise, you need to sweat. You can even play sports, It takes your mind away from the real world. You can think, etc., etc. So I think it is very, very important. So what I do is that I sacrifice my mornings. Now I don't anymore, so I have picked the lunchtime. And I make sure it is, religious. That even if I'm feeling down, and many a times because I start so early, by the time it's 12, 1 o'clock, you've already clocked in 7.5 hours. And when I go out to the gym and I come back and I run 5, 7, 8 kilometers every day and I work, I do light weights. I don't want to be a big guy, but I whenever I come out of the gym, I feel so good. I feel like I'm just like, the new day has started, So I always encourage, and this, it's very important that this habit has to be formed from a young age, whether it is healthy eating or, exercise. You need to do it from now. Don't think that, yes, you have a high metabolism today, I don't need to, I'm okay, when I'm 40, and then you develop these bad habits, and then you just never go to the gym. So for those that think, when you look at someone who's gained a lot of weight, and you're like, how the hell that happened? But let's look at it from a math perspective, right? I mean, if you gain 1 kilo in a year, right? I mean, you won't notice it, right? Would you notice it? 1 kilo? No, right? Now imagine 1 times 15. Serious business, eh?
If your life at some point is not going on well, you have a job that other people think is good, you're probably getting money, but then you don't really feel it's enough. What do? You have to go back to your past to find out something that you can do that can help you take the next step in life, which is what Moore does, and which is what Moore teaches us with this short anecdote of a story that he gave, which is that look back to your past and see the opportunities.
You know what? I actually got a job when I graduated at Wall Street, and I was getting paid $40,000. Okay, and
that's a lot of money, Mohammed.
Okay, and I will tell you, because $40,000 in the US in New York, in Manhattan, is not much. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So 40 grand, and then they would make me work 100-hour weeks. Literally, there were times we would fall asleep on the table, and the next day get up, and we had a shirt and a tie, and we would wear the same suit and go back to work. It was madness. We were drinking so much coffee, it was crazy. But end of the day, then they would give you $20,000 in bonus. So you have $60,000, and then you have 30% tax. So you have $40,000 net. Okay? You try renting an apartment in Manhattan. You have a small box with a bathroom, and you would pay $2,500 a month.
Whoa.
So all in all, I had no money. I had to still go out, I had to buy suits, you know, so I started calling my dad. I'm like, listen, you know, can you, subsidize and help me? He's like, no, man, I'm not gonna, you better come back here because there's great opportunities. So basically that brought me back to Tanzania because I just realized, okay, I could have, been in the corporate world and tried to, climb the ladder. But I realized that there was so much more opportunity back home. So I decided to come to Tanzania and start and join the business, the family business, where at that time my father was the one and only person that was running that business.
Rule number 7, something that has been stressed by other billionaires like Strive Masiwa: stay in Africa and be a little bit patient. This is where the opportunity is, and this is where the great money will be made in the next decades and even in the next centuries.
Africa has a huge potential, one. Tanzania has even bigger potential. I mean, if you look at the 6 out of the 10 fastest growing economies are in Africa, in the world. I mean, the world economists I read say that the world economy is growing at 1.7, 1.8%. The African continent is growing at 4.8%, and Tanzania is growing at 7%. So wherever you touch, there is money. So you are in the right time, at the right place. That's one thing. 2, you need to be highly disciplined. You cannot have success without working hard. And success or becoming wealthy is not about, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a block by block process. It's like, climbing the stairs. There's no taking an elevator in this process. So I would urge the youth to be very patient, to be very ethical, to work very hard. And with God's will, I think that the success lies ahead of them.
Rule number 8, something which Mo lives by on his own, is that your word is your bond. You have to be credible. You have to be trustworthy. Once you give your word, keep it. People will trust you better, and people will be better at doing deals with you. They will be more ready to come back and do repeated deals with you. And so for this rule, your word is your bond. Be credible.
Nothing comes easy in life. You have to really, really work hard. So of course, I believe you need to be very committed in what you want. Then you need to have discipline. Then you need to work on a transparency and an ethical way to be able to succeed. So I feel these are the characteristics that have made me where I am today. Credibility. When you say something, or when you deal with a bank, or when you make a commitment, you have to stand by to it. Then whether you're making money or you're losing money. And it's like our religion in Islam, when you give your word, before you even sign a contract, your word is your word. So I think that these are the areas where, when I reflect back, that these are the principles, fundamentals that I've stood by, that have got me where I am today, with the grace of God.
Rule number 9, have a daily routine.
But about how you manage your schedule.
So I wake up at 5 in the morning every day. Sometimes I'm really tired, but I drag myself out. And I pray in the morning, and then I head to the gym and run, 4 or 5 miles. Okay. Then come back, just run, do cardio, come back, take a shower. By 6:15, I'm at work on a normal day. And I get 300 to 400 emails a day because I trade in various commodities and internal mails, regional mails. By 7:30, I try to clear all my mails. And because I've got over 60 divisional companies, so I have 60 divisional board meetings in a month. So I start the one at 7:30, the bigger one. By 12:30, I'm done. I sit in the car. Because I was a politician in Tanzania, we've got 10, 12 newspapers. So I'm in the car, I'm reading the newspapers, and I head back to the gym because it's a full day that has happened. And I just do weights for 45 minutes.
Gosh.
I come out, and my house is very close. I go and have lunch with my wife, and it's nice. I get to see my kids, even if it's for 15 minutes. And when I get back, so the adrenaline starts again, and it's a whole new day for me. And then, of course, I continue running meetings, and then I have guests in the evening. By the time it's like 8:30, I come back.
Yeah.
I reflect a lot when I'm traveling.
Yeah.
It's like a holiday. Traveling is always a holiday. Also when you're traveling for work, because you're out of the norm, right?
Yeah.
So whether I'm on the plane, I get to read, get to think, I get to strategize. But I have a fantastic team of people, and everyone at METL is great. So it's a great support.
The last, but certainly not the least rule, is that give back to your community.
You know, when you're an entrepreneur, it's very, very important to do all this impact investing and make sure that at the end of the day, it's not only about the money, and it's about the people. I'll give you a small example. What happened to me recently where I was kidnapped. And it's very funny. What happened, it was 9 days, and majority of people in my country are very poor people. And there are differences of political affiliation, there are differences of religion, there are differences of color, there are differences of tribes. But the biggest difference in Africa and in the world is between the haves and the have-nots. So when I was abducted and I was away for 9 days, and when I came back and I saw what was happening in the social media, and I saw how Africans and poor Africans stood up for me in terms of praying, hashtags, bring back more. I mean, this really, really, really touched me. Because how do you expect a poor person to think about a rich person's problems? And I was very, very surprised, because the problem is between the haves and the have-nots. So I think it is very, very important in our careers. Like the speaker before, spoke, that life is very, very short, and I think it is important to always give back to our communities, specific communities.
Thank you so much for watching. Now, after you subscribe, I'd love to hear your take on 2 businesses that you think in Africa are producing very, very quality products at a competitive price. Businesses that you think have done so well and they're able to compete with any other outside business from all over the world that tries to threaten and take their market share in Africa. And also, leave in the comments below and tell me who you think among Africa's billionaires is the biggest philanthropist who really has lived the rules of giving back to the community and increasing their standard of giving as they are growing up in terms of their monetary value instead of their standard of living. And also, if you like this video, be sure to send it to your friends so that they may also get inspiration from this young billionaire who is rising in our midst in the African continent. Until next time, my name is Maro.